الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين هدى الله عنهم واستغفرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Our series of discussions have gone to its second night, and yesterday we were looking at the reality that we're living in Akhir Summer. The fact that we're awaiting a Saviour, and the fact that the world is crying out for a Saviour. 21st century, and you look around the world and you see trial and tribulation which is taking place. And yesterday, as we mentioned, that first time within the history of Islam, you are seeing changes which are taking place all over the Middle East. In the way that we stated that those predictions by Amir al-Mu'mineen when he predicted to his companions wasn't something which was solely reserved for his companions. If he was telling Khomeini, for example, this is what's going to happen in the future, don't think that it wasn't for you either. If those predictions were specific for them, we see today that there are particular predictions which are specific for us as well. That the Imam in his wisdom, and in fact in his infinite wisdom, that wisdom which is attached to the wisdom of God, that wisdom of the universal intellect, that's the middle meaning that everything within creation is found within him. Everything that is scattered in the world of existence in one Qanat is found within a middle meaning. And so in this way, when that Imam says that, look, there is something for you as well, until the Day of Judgment you find that there was something there. And so we looked at the signs yesterday, the reality that he predicted. And in this way we looked at the political situation and how it's changing the world. The idea that the entire Arab Spring took place, and in fact these are all signs in a way, that if this is the last time and if the Imam is to come, and if, let's say for example, these are those signs that herald the reappearance of the Imam, then we are living in a critical situation and circumstance. And the idea when the Imam talks about the fall of the Maghrib, and the Maghrib includes all of these countries which are there in North Africa. But the idea that what's happening in Tunisia or what is happening in Egypt, the development of a civil war within Yemen, and then after that when you look at it, Bahrain or coming to Syria. And in fact, when you look at the Riwayat, it's actually Syria which is pivotal. Civil war within Syria. And yesterday we looked at this idea that Amir al-Mu'mineen is predicting, and he is saying that there will be thunderbolts in Latakia. The idea that there will be gases coming, and there will be a two-way war within Syria. And let's say if we are living in those times, let's say that this civil war is what it is today, then each one of us has a responsibility to prepare ourselves. Really, can we say to ourselves, are they ready? Time is very short. And as you can see, there is no barakah left in time anymore. There was a time maybe 30 or 40 years ago, even within this city in London, where it seemed very expansive time. For those people who have gone to maybe Najaf or Qom or individuals like ourselves, when we come back into this country, when we came back into this society, you find that time is restricted. The work that you can do over there, speaking to a friend yesterday, and he was saying, he says, it took me 4 years to translate one book, and I was in Najaf for 2 months and I translated it. It's the idea that time almost expands. There's barakah in that time, but when you come into the West, sometimes when you come into places where there's a lot of fitna, especially these capital cities such as there, you find time goes. And you speak to people who are living in the country, and you find that they have more time for things. That we live life very fast. Go back to the tradition of the Imam, and he says this. He says, look, Akhir Zaman will be like this. That months will look like days, and days will look like hours, and time will fly. And so if I was to ask you a question, do you remember 2003? And most of you here are from Iraq. Do you remember the fall of Saddam? Can you believe it's coming up to 10 years? Tell me. 10 years like that? Can you believe, honestly? Because if I was to ask a lot of you kids, say, do you remember when you were at school, and now most of you are doing your A-levels, GCSEs, going into degree? I can say, I remember when I was in nursery, and now they're opening a nursery there. Time is flying. 30 years of your life, 40 years of your life. How long do you think you're going to live? Your friends have gone, a lot of them. In the last year or so, how many people have passed away? There is no logic to death, and death is coming very fast upon us. Either you could walk out and that's it, it's the end. How many stories like that have you heard? 18-year-old passes away. 30-year-old passes away. 50-year-old, there's no logic. And so in this way, there is a preparation that needs to be there. On the one hand, you're waiting for the coming of the Imam. But on the second hand, there's no preparation which is going into it. What do we need to be doing? What is it that we need to do? Is it just like that the Imam will come? Because as we said yesterday, if you look at the coming of the Imam, the Bani Israel were waiting for over 500 years for the coming of the Messiah. And in 570 that Messiah was born, and that was the final prophet. What happened? They rejected him. After building forts in Khaybar, after creating economic routes, trade routes within Mecca and Medina, which was Yathrib at the time, what you saw was they rejected him. And so think to yourself and see, what have I done? When the Imam comes, are we going to reject him? Can we give everything for the sake of the coming of that Imam? Are you ready for change? If you were to be taken out of your comfort zone, are you willing to do things? Are you willing to change yourself? So you see, in reality, time is short. And in life, really, for those people who are atheists, you find that there is no certainty other than death. Now, let me ask, if you don't believe in God, what is certain in your life? Nothing is but death. And that's where we're going. And there will be a time eventually when we will be standing in front of our Creator. And so for that day, prepare. There is a different reality. There is a greater reality which is involved. In your life, how many times do you doubt? And you know the tradition it says, right, that when a believer leaves in the morning, by the time he comes back in the evening, it's very much possible that he will be away from the deen. It's very much possible he'll lose faith in God. And if you look today, what do you see? You see people losing faith in God almost every single day on numerous occasions. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to go through your entire life doubting? Don't you get doubts in your entire life? Times in your day? Or maybe let's say times in a year where you think to yourself, is there really a God? And you find this is a question for a lot of people. They doubt. Is there a God? Why is there trouble in the world? What about the oppression of evil? And the periods of your life where you go, you're thinking, am I truly on the right religion? Some people do that. And you think to yourself, and you think, look, religion is about certainty. But the question is this, how many of us are truly certain that sometimes our minds are telling us there's a God, but our heart denies it? And then again, there's different levels of certainty. The fact that we commit sin tells us that we're not at that highest level of certainty. Because as you know, there is a position, there is a time where man transcends, and he gets to a stage that he stops committing sin as well. There have been ulama in the past like that. You know, when you look at the life of somebody like Abbas, you find that from the age of 14 to the age of 97 odd when he passed away, they say he didn't commit any major sins. He didn't commit any minor sins. He was, so to speak, infallible, if you could use the term for someone who's not a masoom. But there are people like that who have gone through their life not sinning. And so this is when you realize the isma of the imam or the masumin is far greater than just sinning and not sinning. And I think a lot of times we sell the masumin short by saying that all it's about is sinning and not sinning. No, it's far greater than that. Isma goes beyond that as well. It transcends various levels. It's not just the physical sinning or not sinning, it's greater than that. And so see, look into your life and see, isn't there times where you get a doubt? You doubt yourself, you doubt God. In fact, speaking to a lot of youth, they'll tell you that there are periods of time when they leave the deen as well. You know what? It can't be a God. So now imagine you come to your deathbed and you're about to pass away and these doubts come into your mind. Let me give you a story. Atullah Pigani once was sitting and he was giving his Bab al-Harj. And in the middle of that he started to narrate a story. You know what he says? He says that I had a good friend. And that friend was with me from the very beginning of when I came into the house. And you know what he says? He says that he studied with me. and we lived together. And after that we separated and went our separate ways. But he was very ill and he calls me, and I went to see him. And I found that he was on his deathbed. He was about to leave this world. But I could look at him and I could see he was very frustrated. And so I went to him. And I said to him, "You summoned me, you called me as well." He says, "Yes, I called you." He says, "Let me ask you a question." He says, "Go on, ask." He says, "Wasn't I a better student than you?" He says, "Yes, you were." He says, "Didn't I work harder than you?" He says, "Yes, you did." He says, "That didn't I put more hours than you? Didn't I fast more than you?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Get me the Quran then." He says, "I take the Quran." He goes, gets the Quran, brings it to this man. This man opens the Quran, spits in it, closes it, says, "God has done injustice on me," he dies a kafir. Tell me, that's possible. Ask the reasons, go and ask it why. For Zayd was a very big scholar. In the tradition it says that he went to one of his best students. He started reciting Surah Yasin. You know what happens? His student says, "I don't want to listen to this." He says, "What?" Closes the Quran. He starts reciting La ilaha illallah. He says, "Look, I don't want to listen to this." Fuzail gets up and goes, the person dies, he dies a kafir. That night, Fuzail sees in his dream, and he sees that this student of his comes into his dream. He says, "What's the story? Throughout all of your life, you were such a good person. What is it that led you to death like this? What is it that led you to become a kafir on your deathbed? What's this kufr? What's the story?" That tells us none of us are immune. He says, "Yes, there are 3 things that led me to death like this. That if I have these 3 qualities," and look inside of your own selves, and I need to look inside myself. Do I have these 3 qualities within me? He says, if you've got these 3 qualities, you can die the death of a kafir. He says, what are those 3 qualities? Imagine that. A person spending his entire life with religious studies, has a turban on his head, is a mushtahid, and he dies the death of a kafir. What is it? You know what he says? These are 3 qualities. He says, number 1, jealousy. Look at the riwayat. A person with jealousy in their hearts can die a kafir on their deathbed. What's jealousy? Think about what jealousy is. What is it? Hasad, right? Jealousy. What is the significance of jealousy? What is jealousy? It's basically this. I feel bitterness in my heart because of something that somebody else may have. And you find yourself in a situation sometimes as well. People do. That you find that there's a possession or there's something. Forget us a lot. So you find that many times there are things that you feel jealous about. Some people do that. You find that especially there are certain vices which are predominant in certain individuals. And one of them is this vice of jealousy. Somebody has something, they've got a nicer car than you. You feel jealous about it. Somebody may have more knowledge than you. You feel jealous about it. Then somebody may have a bigger position than you. And you know what the weird thing is? You find that people will tell you, when you speak to them on the level, truthfully, you say, well look, you know what, I was really jealous of that guy. He had an accident. I went to him and I said, it's so bad you had an accident. But inside I was like, yes, he lost something. There's an enmity which develops. Sometimes you find that when you have enmity towards someone as well, jealousy develops. You can't see that person happy. You know there's someone you don't agree with in the mosque. Let's say he becomes ill one day. He stands at the first line of prayers and today he's not there and you stand in his place and you feel good about it. It can be small things like this. Jealousy where you want something bad to happen to the other person. And you may not admit it to yourself, but it happens in your life. First thing, jealousy. What's the second thing? Is the second thing I was involved in backbiting. They say 1/3 of the pressure of the grave, backbiting. So you look at the narration of the 6th Imam alayhi salam, you know what he says? He says, on the day of judgment, right, you have our intercession. We fear for you in your grave. grave is very difficult. The squeezing of the grave, torment of the grave. And I'll give you an example from my own life. You know, you think sometimes that torment only happens in the East. You think snakes and scorpions are only in the East. A couple of months ago, I remember I was in the South Country. And I went into a church. And when I was coming out of the church, there was a graveyard. You know what I saw? For the first time in my life, me and 3 other people saw a snake going into a grave. Now tell me, I've never seen in England a snake. 3 of us. And the other ones, they were Christian. And they jumped up and they jumped back. There was a snake. And it was going towards the grave. Torment of the grave. Pressure of the grave, squeezing of the grave. Imagine if that snake comes and you're lying there. And it comes and it bites you. And it goes through your eye. And you can't protect yourself. Pressure of the grave, torment of the grave is a reality. 1/3 of that, backbiting. What is the reality of backbiting? Have you ever thought about it? Backbiting isn't dogma. It's not slander. Many of us think that backbiting means that you say something which isn't apparent in that person. No. Backbiting means, let's say for example, he is fat, let's say, and you go behind his back and you say he's fat. Something that the person won't like, but the quality is there within them. Backbiting in any situation, circumstance is not allowed. Monitor yourself. This is the month of Ramadan. Look at yourself, see within yourself. How often do we backbite? Even if you've made yourself an intention, then I'm not going to backbite. You know when you go socialize with your friends, 1 minute goes, 2 minutes goes, they're talking about, you're quietly sitting there thinking, I'm not going to backbite. 5 minutes later, you also start, yeah, you know what, he was like this. She was like that. And you know where all the conversations start? Start from gossiping. One of the most wretched people in the narrations, and we'll look at it in the next coming night. You find within the narrations of Abbas Razawi, wretched person is a person who gossips. Barakah is removed from a person who gossips. Hell becomes incumbent on a person. Gossiping starts off from there. Hey, guess what happened? He's having problems with his wife. Really? You know what? He deserves it. Why? He's very angry. There you go. Backbite. Straight away you've done something. 2 words, you've gone there. And you know what? He probably is a very angry person. You stated the obvious, but it's backbiting. You know why? Because it's negative. Then there's a second thing that we say, and you see that all the time. And you say, you know what? I'm not backbiting. You know why? Because if he was there, I would have said it to his face. You would have done 2 sins. One backbiting, the other one offending the person. Pressure of the grave. Death as a kafir. Backbiting. Talking about other people. I've seen within my own life, ulama, big scholars, who won't even talk about a person. Not positive, not negative. And it takes great strength like this. And I've seen that they won't do. I remember the likes of Ayatollah Langoudi, I spent a lot of time with them. Even if a person would be negative towards them, he would never speak about that person behind their back. Because you know what? A lot of times it starts with positive. You mention something positive about somebody. You say, look, he's a really great guy. 5 minutes later, you're cutting him up. And it happens like that. Did you see what that person did? Did you see this? Backbiting. Small thing. But in our societies, we do it all the time. This person is saying, I died a kafir because one of the properties was that I used to backbite. Pressure of the grave. Allah in your grave, why are you backbiting? Look into yourself in your circles and see. In the tradition, it goes as far as saying this, that if a person is, somebody's backbiting about a person in front of you, it becomes incumbent upon you to defend them, otherwise you're the same. If a person, in the narration of Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying, he's saying that if a person defends a person who is being, or somebody's backbiting about, you know what it says in the tradition? It says that 1,000 doors of torment are saved from you in this world and the hereafter. 1,000 doors. And so it's very important for us to defend people like that. And you see, it's so small. Sometimes it can be so easy to talk about somebody negatively. But in the tradition again, when you look into another tradition, it says a very beautiful thing. It says that, look, not only that 1,000 doors of torment are removed from you in this world and the hereafter, and I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, you were to have problems in your family, Allah removes this if you defend somebody. If you were to have husband and wife problems, it's more than possible if you were to stand up for somebody else, Allah would remove it. Standing up means that the person has the negative vice, but you shut them up. And so again, you look into the tradition, and you find something else as well. It says that if you've ever done that, if you've ever done riba, if you have been a person who's spoken illy of somebody else, it becomes then your responsibility to pray for their sins to be removed as well. Whenever you think about that person, and whenever you think about that sin, pray for them, ask Allah, remove their sins. Why? Because you don't want to be that person standing on the day of judgment like that. So you see, death is a reality. How we're going to die sometimes is in our own hands. And so therefore it's our responsibility to develop ourselves. And so this is why you get two types of people in the world. One type of people, as we mentioned, who go through their entire life doubting. Is there a God? Am I right? Am I not? You doubt, and it happens in our society. You speak to a lot of the youth, they doubt. Is there a God? I was speaking to my atheist friends. But there are those people who eyes open, and they come to realize a haqiqah, they come to realize a reality. If they realize there's a God, their intellect tells them there's a God, but the heart is not in sync. And this is the Muslims really, that we rationalize it, but it's not time to develop our heart. There's a greater reality than this. You know why? We doubt because we're restricted in the physical world. But our spirit has been created for eternity. That the minute Allah created us, created our spirit, our physical bodies may perish, but our soul is forever. It becomes, in the same way, infinite. It isn't the wajib al-wujud, but it is, in a sense, infinite now. Your soul has been. So therefore, you have a property to live forever. And you look at every human being and you ask them, do you want to live forever? Everyone wants to live forever. Nobody likes to die. So in this way, you've been created for something far greater. And the quicker you realize that you've been created for something far greater, that's when you think to yourself, right, there is a reality. And in fact, this isn't just reserved for Muslims. You also find atheists today who realize that there's a higher reality. That we have a physical body and there's a metaphysical reality as well. And it's that reality that each one of us are trying to get to. That's that reality that gives you certainty. Alam al-Mawara, something far greater. And you look today within the Western world, especially within Europe, there's a new trend which is coming. As well as the New Age, there's this new rational mysticism. That there are atheists who have realized that yes, there is a higher level of the physical world. And they go on this pathway for one reason, and that reason is to remove pain and suffering. And you see these advertisements for Buddhism and meditation. What's the purpose? To release yourself outside of your physical body, to connect with the metaphysical realm, so suffering removes. Islam came 1400 years ago and said that there is a metaphysical reality. And it says that no, you sell yourself short, because all you see is that realm which is alam al-mujarradat, that realm which is greater than the physical matter. But Islam says that there is a greater reality which is God. And when you get to this reality, then haqaiq al-ashya, all of the realities of creation open up to you. This is the essence of Ramadan and what it's about. The idea that you could do an entire journey of 1,000 years in the period of one night. The idea that you can see the realities of creation and the angels in one night. The idea that when Laylatul Qadr comes, you can see the blessings and the barakah in that night with the eyes of your heart. The idea that when you get to your deathbed, that you have certainty that there is a creator. That when you get to that deathbed, then you realize that God is calling for you. This is the reality that we're going towards. This is something that we need to achieve. This is the essence of Ramadan and what Allah gives it. The idea that you have been given the opportunity to connect now. Now connect with God. What is the point going throughout all of your life doubting? What is the point throughout all of your life thinking to yourself that there's no higher reality? Why don't you see paradise now so you realize the essence of paradise? And this is why we've been created. Don't sell yourself short. Go deeper than that. Within this multiplicity, within the kathra that you have of London, there's a greater reality. Don't sell yourself short then. Get to that reality so that you can be at peace. In Kalam we say, in theology we say, there are two reasons why you follow a religion. One of them is for inner peace. Because every human being is suffering. Look today and see, you have problems in your life. We all have problems because we live in the physical world. And the theological debate is this, that in the physical world, there's suffering. Why? Because it's restricted. There's physics there. You remove a person out of the physical world and you find there's no suffering. You know when you go into heaven, there's no suffering there. When your soul is removed from your body, if you're a good person, there's no suffering there. Why do you suffer in hell and in your grave? Because these attachments are being removed from you. Once the attachment is removed of the physical world, you find that there is no suffering. So you suffer in the physical world because there's physics there. But we've been created for higher than that. Why do you follow a religion? Because it's meant to give you inner peace. This is why it says in the Quran, "Ala bi dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub." God, remembrance of God, but it's deeper than that. It's not just the apparent meaning that we think. It goes higher than that. There's peace within religion. There's peace. This is why you follow it. And there's a second reason they say in Kalam. They say because it takes man towards perfection. Because you've been created for perfection. You've been created in the surah of Allah. But what is it? The physical nature of God? No. It's the akhlaq of Allah. It's the fact that if Allah is merciful, you have the ability to be merciful. If Allah, for example, is giving, you have the ability to be giving. In fact, all of those characteristics of God are found within you as well. To a limited degree, but they are there. You know goodness because goodness is found within your heart. And so because God is perfect, you are striving towards perfection. Whether you know it or not, when you look at an atheist today as well, the atheist claims not to believe in God, but when you look at his characteristics, you find God there. The atheist wakes up in the morning, he shaves. For example, he wears nice clothes. He combs his hair. What is that? Beauty. Allah's beauty. He wants to achieve perfection. Allah's perfect. He takes care of his physical body. Why? Because it's a form of perfection. What is he doing then? He's describing God without putting a label to God. You know God and you're looking at God in that respect. Within your fitrah is the fitrah of Allah. It's that fitrah that says that each one of us needs to go towards perfection. And that is found within akhlaq. You have the akhlaq of Allah. And this is why you find that the final prophet's message is what? What differentiates him from 124,000 prophets? Let me ask you. What is it? The fact that he came to perfect your akhlaq, to balance your internal faculties, to make you perfect. If you look at man today, what do you find? Aristotle says, man is what? Haywan al-natiq bil-irada. You are a rational animal with the ability to make your own decisions. What is the perfection? The kamal of man is when his natiqiyya is perfect. What is the pivotal feature to go towards intellectual perfection? It's your akhlaq. What does the Prophet say? He says, I'm here to better your akhlaq. Why? Because I'm here to make you godly. I'm here to make you into a true polished manifestation of the Creator. What am I here to do? I'm here to make you into a divine manifestation. Perfect. I'm here to make you into perfect man. I'm here to make you to Khalifatullah. That's the aim. And so we sell ourselves short because we don't realize this. Throughout our entire day, what do? You wake up in the morning, right? If you're lucky, you'll pray. But you're sleeping and you think to yourself, well, I'll put the button on snooze. I've got 2 hours to go. And then again you put the button on snooze because it's half an hour to go. And then it comes to 15 minutes and you're thinking, okay, now I've got to get up because if I put it on snooze now, that's it, it's gone. And you go and you pray and you may go back to sleep again. And you get up again and you have breakfast and you go out to work again. And when you get to work, you're trying to drive there and somebody cuts you up and your window goes down and your 2 fingers come up. And then after that you close the window again and you get to work and you have a fight with your boss and there's tension there. How are we going to achieve our targets? Lunchtime comes, you become a different person again because you go and pray. And then after that you come back and you go back to the old way that you were. And then you come home and you walk through the door and your wife sees your face and she thinks, man, you know what, I'm going to leave him to it. She goes into the room again and your face is down. And then you come in and you lie down. Switch on the television, Olympics are coming on, and you fall asleep. And then if you've got children, they come and they get up, go to your bed. What's the difference between us and an animal? If the animal had enough intellect, they'd be doing the same. They wake up as well. You see the lion in the morning, he forgets to even wash his face. He gets up in the morning, goes to work, hunts, brings the food back, lies back, kicks back, goes to sleep. He has the lioness proverbially making him food, eats, goes to sleep. What's the difference between us and an animal? Have we understood God in this? Have we understood the purpose of creation in this? What have you been created for? Heavens. You've been created for what? Greatness. And so this is what God does. He gives you this month. He says that within this month there's a secret. And that secret is that it moves you towards realization. It rips open the veils which are found in your heart. And it takes you to a better understanding. This understanding that when you begin to understand, when this light begins to shine in your heart, when that connection with the Imam becomes stronger, then it doesn't make a difference to you what you are, where you are. But at least you've realized the reality. So it's very important for us in this month to utilize this. Let us pray to Allah that He gives us the opportunity to utilize this month the best possible way. That He gives us the opportunity to forgive and to ask for forgiveness. That He removes all of our problems, and there's people suffering today. Whoever is suffering, especially in this room, and for those followers of Ahlul Bayt who are suffering across the world, may Allah remove their suffering. For those people who are going through financial problems, may God cure their financial problems. If there's people going through health problems, may God help them in that. If they're people going through examinations today, may God help them in their examinations, trial and tribulation. May Allah make this center successful, and may Allah give the Sayyid the opportunity to serve the community that he's doing very well. May Allah hasten the door of the Imam and make us all part of his Ansar. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi.